was mentally and emotionally challenging.
Yeah.
So, but then there's one thing that I remember. It's how you respond to
Yep.
adversities. It's
Yep.
how you respond to adversities, not the adversity itself
Yeah.
that defines who you are,
Yep.
and that creates your life story.
So today, for another episode for series The Grateful Immigrant, I'm speaking to my brother, Edward, originally from Manila, Philippines, as he tells us why he moved to Kansas City in Missouri, USA. Hello, Edward. Hope you're well.
Hey, what's up?
First off, can you tell us what you do?
Well, I'm an assistant.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm a principal of one of the high schools in the Kansas City Metro.
Okay. Okay. So before I go to your role, to your job now, can you tell me how you ended up in the U.S. and more specifically in Kansas City, Missouri?
Well, as you know, the United States, the demand for teachers, it comes and goes. So I believe it started in the 1980s. So around 2007, one of the school districts in Kansas City decided to go abroad because of the demand for teachers, and they started hiring in the Philippines.
Right.
And one of the teachers that was hired was my wife.
Okay.
So around August of the same year, 2007,
Mhm.
she moved to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And around October,
Okay.
late October, we
I remember that. Yeah.
we moved here in Kansas City.
Yeah. Okay. So what were your first impressions of Kansas City?
Oh.
Did you like it immediately? You know, like you landed and you go, oh, love it.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Let me see. Impressions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cold,
Yeah.
it's vast,
Yeah.
and it's empty.
Yeah.
So now we grew up in Manila,
Yeah. Yeah.
where
We're all stuck together.
it's people are congested, it's
Yeah.
busy, it's active, a lot of people,
Yeah.
congested, right? And moving to the United States, specifically in the
Kansas.
Midwest,
Yeah.
specifically in the Midwest, where land is vast, people are not concentrated in one area.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when
You
I
can see it when you
landed,
go down the plane, you know, you can see, oh, people live here.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly what I said to
Yeah, yeah.
myself. Where are the people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when we landed in the airport, I was like, where are the people?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but then later on, as you get to know people, there's a Midwestern vibe in Kansas City
Okay.
where people are warm, people are hardworking, people are there's a sense of community in
Okay.
Kansas City, and I think Kansas City is one of the best cities in the United States.
But then you're not, obviously, you're not biased in that opinion. Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed here, and obviously I'm happy that you're happy here. So before you left for the United States, you held a senior teaching position in one of the international schools, well-known international schools in Manila. So you were senior there. Then you left for the US. You got here. You didn't have the qualifications to be able to teach here. Your qualifications weren't recognized, which meant you couldn't work. So how did that feel, and how did you manage that from an emotional and mental standpoint?
Right. So when we moved to Kansas City, I didn't realize that my wife has an H1 visa, which is a working visa, and if you are an immediate family member of an H1 visa holder, your visa will be an H4 visa, which is a dependent visa.
Okay.
And it's a restricted visa where you will not be allowed specifically to work. So the transition from being busy,
Yeah.
you work a lot,
Senior.
and I was actually dean of student affairs
Okay.
in one of the international schools
Yeah.
in Manila. So I was out a lot, busy, and transitioning.
You had that sense of purpose as well. didn't you?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct. So from being that
Yeah,
to being not allowed to work in the United
Yeah.
States,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was mentally and emotionally challenging.
Yeah.
So, but then there's one thing that I remember. It's it's how you respond to
Yep.
adversities. It's how you respond to adversities, not the adversity itself
Yeah. Yeah.
that defines who you are,
Yep.
and that creates your life story. So I did not allow that to create my life story,
Yeah.
rather,
Define you.
yeah, to define
Who
me.
was that that said that? I think that was Tin Cup. You remember that film?
Yeah, something like that.
Tin Cup. You define the moment, but the moment
No,
defines.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I did not allow that to limit me,
Mm-hmm.
to define who I am. So I look for opportunities to make myself productively busy. I cannot work, but I can
Yeah.
volunteer. So I
Yeah.
did some volunteer work.
Which leads me to my next question. You couldn't get paid work.
Mhm.
But I remember because you toured me first time around. You toured me into is that the World War II Museum?
World War One.
World War One.
Mhm.
And you toured me and you told me that you volunteered there. So you took on voluntary work in response to the adversity that was facing you, and that's supposed to keep you busy and to keep your sanity. So tell me about that.
So
What were those voluntary gigs that you did?
So I did. So I was trying to understand how to navigate the system.
Yeah.
At the same time, I have to make sure that I don't lose that professionalism within me,
Yeah.
that professional experience.
Yeah.
So I can't work, but at the same time, I learned that there are some volunteer work.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I did was to be a tour guide in a World War One museum.
Yeah.
So I did that for a few months, actually for almost a year. So I did that, and then
So what did they give you?
oh,
They give you
actually,
meals?
from taking quotes from
Yeah.
visitors
So
to
did you get free lunch or something?
I don't remember. I think so. I don't remember.
Okay,
But yeah, so I did that. It was fun. It was funny actually because when I went there, people who volunteer are actually they're not young because
No.
they're most of them actually all of
Retired,
them
yeah.
are retired, professionally retired to their jobs, right?
Yeah.
So, but when I went there, I was I was actually
What
the
are you doing?
youngest. What are you doing here? Yeah, exactly the question. So they, but just to make sure that I don't lose that professional experience.
But
So
I think you learned a lot as well
oh,
doing that. Yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
definitely. So I did that, and I also did some volunteer work in the health department while I was studying for the licensure,
Yeah.
teaching
To get your
licensure. Yeah,
qualifications.
correct. Teaching licensure
Yeah.
exams in in Kansas. So hoping that.
So what did you do at the health department?
So I did. I did some from people who go there to look for what is that
The taxi.
like
Injections.
injections,
You give
immunization,
injections.
yeah,
Yeah.
immunizations, and giving them information about
Like the health
things.
checks and stuff like
Correct.
that. Yeah.
So anything that they give me, I do that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, the good thing about that is that you're not stale.
Correct.
Your mind's still active,
Right.
and I bet
Right.
doing that voluntary gig in the museum.
Mhm.
I imagine you enjoyed that because there was a lot to learn.
I'm a history teacher,
And the history.
so I mean, that's one of the things that I was looking for volunteer work, and at the same time,
It'll feed you.
yeah, at the same time, I'm looking for something that interests me as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I can see you doing that when you retire. Uh, well, now, so you talked about you did volunteer work while you were studying to get your qualifications, to get you to prepare you for the licensure exams here in the United States. So, without repeating yourselves, obviously, tell me about the steps that you had to do, the hoops you had to go through to land your first teaching gig.
Right, right. So once again, I go back to like understanding how to navigate the system.
Yeah,
So I know that there are certain steps that I have to take so that I can get a licensure exam.
yeah,
I have so that I can get the credentials and I can get a license to teach in the United States. First thing that I have to do is to like look at what are the requirements for me to be.
Was it a long list?
Oh, there is a long. It's not a long list, but there are specific things that you need to have.
Yeah, yeah.
So that you can qualify for a teaching license
Yeah.
in Kansas, for example. So that's what I did. I looked at those
Yeah.
criteria, and took the test, and I passed the
Yeah.
test. But
First
there's
time.
one, no, first time, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's one
First
thing,
time.
but there's one thing that the other thing that I have to do is to look for an employer. So this
Yeah.
is the thing that people need to understand about H-4 visas.
Yeah.
So if you have that dependent
So
visa,
H4 visa for our viewers
uh-huh,
is a dependence visa
it's a dependent
for the
visa.
United
Correct.
States. Yeah.
So
Okay.
you have to look for an employer
Yeah.
that will sponsor you an H1 visa.
An H1 visa
A
is a
working visa.
working visa.
It's that
Okay.
working visa. So
Yeah.
other than being qualified and being licensed, I have to look for an employer
Yeah.
that will hire me and is willing.
Yeah.
It's
To sponsor
willing
you.
to sponsor you an H4 visa. So all the school districts here in the Kansas City, I applied to all,
Yeah.
but there's one. Fortunately, there's one who's willing to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they asked me to demo teach, and after a couple of days, I landed the gig.
Yeah.
Landed teaching.
So you didn't get a call back from the others?
Oh, yeah, that's it. You can name.
No, no,
Yeah,
no, let's not name anything.
yeah,
Right?
you can,
We're not naming anything.
you
Right.
you can name any school districts here in the Kansas City
You,
Metro.
you,
I
you
applied.
tried it, you applied for it.
I applied.
And there was one that, took their chances on
Correct.
you if you want.
Huh.
And here we go. And
Yeah.
here we are. They've landed the gold mine. And I'm not saying that because you're brother, you're my brother. So I know these things about you, mate. Okay. So, and I'm not saying this because I'm your brother. I know this about you, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me. People who know you. So you're a hard worker. Okay. Long hours.
Mhm.
You're very generous, both with what you have
Mhm.
and what you share with your time
Thank you.
helping others.
Yeah.
Okay, you're beloved in your school. I know that because I got to first time I was here. I got to speak to some of your former students. So you're a husband, a parent, and now you're a grandparent to two
Right.
beautiful boys, and your three children, young men now,
Mhm.
all young adults, are carving their own paths here in the United States. And you also know how to have fun. We had a joyous short road trip to Chicago recently. And that was fun. So we've both come a long way from our days in where we come from in Baclaran in Manila, and what we used to do as a family. Our parents worked hard, but we it wasn't enough sometimes. There were five of us. There was one time there were five of us all in school. I don't know how our parents did it, but they did it. And we did things. We sold stuff in the street. When I told Vicky, okay, when I told her about it, she thought it was too dramatic to be true because I'm known to the people who know me back in the UK. I'm known to do a lot of practical jokes and to make up stories and stuff like that. So when I told Vicky, she wouldn't believe me. She thought it was too dramatic to be true.
Well, Vicky, this is true. It
Yeah,
actually happened.
it is.
Mhm.
And our childhood friends, if they're watching, most of whom I am still in touch with. You know them. I know them. I know them very well. They're like brothers. They will know exactly what we're talking about here, and that is quite a bit. Okay, that's quite a bit. Um, if you could nail it down in one, if you could name one, what would you call your biggest, greatest achievement so far?
That's a good
Well,
question.
if there's not one, if there's two,
Yeah,
there's
probably several.
yeah,
Um, Let me see. I think I have to quote the late great Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
This one.
I'm sure you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, he once said, "If you can't fly, you run. If you can't run, you walk. If you can't walk, you crawl. And if you can, anything that you do, you have to keep moving forward."
Yeah.
Right. So that is me saying that one of the greatest achievement, as a person, professionally and personally, is to learning how to navigate the system. Um,
Any system,
like
be it a parent,
right,
be it
well, being a parent, being a professional, being an admin, being an educator, you
and
just
now you're
learn.
principal.
And now I'm principal, just learning how to navigate the system, because that any system, anything that you do, you have to understand it. You have to see you have to understand it before you can be successful about it. Um, so those are the adversities and the challenges and the difficulties that I went through,
Yeah.
as a person and as a professional.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I was able to do by just understanding how the system works,
Okay.
what doesn't work. It's like in teaching, for example, you have to understand your
Yeah.
students,
Yeah.
so that you can be successful in educating them. So that's one of the things that I could say is one of the greatest achievement. It's an ongoing process. It's
Yeah.
not like it's
You're done. You're not
yeah,
done.
yeah. You're
You're
still
only getting
learning. Yeah,
started. Ask your wife.
you're still
Yeah.
navigate the system. Right.
Yeah. I think for me, obviously, as my perspective on you is that I think your greatest achievement is just, your name, what that means to people, what that means to your family, what that means to your school, to people who know you, obviously to our family back home. It's just that they, I know you, they know you,
Right.
but it all adds up into this one individual with multiple personalities that is known to be generous, known to be kind. So I think that is your greatest achievement, and obviously your family.
Right.
And I told you on the way, it's a credit to you and Amy, what you have. So before we start crying, to anyone who comes here to the US or whatever state, or to anyone starting a new life abroad as an immigrant worker, whatever that profession or whatever that job is, any words of wisdom? If there's one that you can tell,
Okay.
tell them, what would that be?
I would start with you have to have a vision.
Yeah.
What do you envision yourself a week from now, 6 months from now, a year from
A vision.
now? A
Yeah.
vision. You have to have a vision, and within that vision, you should be able to come up with specific goals that you have to, know and understand and to hit. There should be certain milestones that you have to hit, whether it's having a family, being able to provide for your family, in work, professional, and so on and so forth. And then after having a vision, after having those goals, create a system of support, because some of the probably most of the immigrants that go here, they don't have that.
Yeah, they start
They
off on their
start
own,
over, and they don't have that system.
and sometimes on their own as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, like what we did,
Yeah.
we went here just by ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't have relatives here in the United States, so we have to create that system of support. So whether it's friends and families and so on and so forth, you have to make sure that you have a system of support.
Yeah. Okay. Wise words. And my last question for you, and this is the ethos of this podcast, is that now, as an immigrant, having lived in the United States, having worked here, having loved and lived here for almost 2 decades, what are you most grateful for?
A couple of things.
Yeah.
The first is family. I'm grateful to my wife. Obviously, she's one of my biggest supporters, and I will not be here.
He's your best friend.
She is my best
Yeah,
friend.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, my wife, she's my number one supporter. My kids, as you said,
Young
they,
adults.
yeah, they're young adults. They're all
You should be proud of
graduated.
them.
They're
Yeah.
they're professionals now.
I'm proud of them.
They thank you, and they are they're starting to make their mark here in this world. So that's number one. Number two is opportunity. I'm grateful for the opportunity that was given to me when I was volunteering. Not a lot of organizations and companies would allow you to volunteer, specifically if they don't know you, right?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful. I'm very thankful for those people who allowed me to volunteer. I'm very thankful for the first school that gave me that teaching gig.
That took on
I'm grateful
chance
for
on you.
that.
Yeah.
Correct. and I'm grateful for my supervisors, for those who believed in me, who gave me that principal position in my current school.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward for that.
Okay. And now you're principal, and yeah, I suppose you're right. All the opportunities that this country has provided you, but it's not obviously all the hard work that you put in as well. But thank you very much, my dear brother.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for joining me and letting me into your lovely home. And that, my dear viewers, concludes this episode for The Grateful Immigrant. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Edward from Kansas City. And if you'd like to have more of these conversations, if you'd like to listen to more talks that I do, please consider subscribing to the channel. And I will speak to you soon. Bye bye.